Hey, Tracy. Hey, guys, welcome to the Constitution class. Today we're running a little bit late. It's about 2:37. Doug is not going to be here for about 20 minutes. So if you want to jump ahead to maybe about the 40-minute mark of the video, that's going to be where class will probably start. Prior to that, probably going to be me talking and uh, Brady and I talking about stuff. So um, anyway, that is that. So welcome and hello, Tracy. Yeah, sorry. Today's just a little bit going nuts. My mom had surgery, so um, it's just I can't. My background's all wonky today, kind of going crazy. How are you? Hello, Monica. There's the war hipster. What's going on?
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting day today.
Yeah, you're not alone. Doug called me. He tried to call you too.
Yeah, I got a hold of him.
He's going to
So
be late.
yeah, I tried to call you because he said he was going to be late. I thought we could talk about stuff. Just
Well,
like
that's that's why I came on a little early.
nah.
What do you want to? What topics do you want to get into?
Mm, let's well, I mean, let's talk about Hamilton a little bit. I mean, that's no shortage of stuff to talk about there.
No, there's not.
You're reading the book too. Who is? Oh, I should have known. That would be We the People. Did you get banned or something, or did you just change your name?
Change names. And Tracy is here, and Monica is
Well,
here.
I don't think so. I think there's only two people in the chat right now.
Well, I see. I see Tracy typed and
Well,
Monica typed.
yeah, but I think they typed and then they left. They may be coming back. There's I see four eyeballs.
Tells me 5 people watching now. Now it's 4. Just refreshed. Anyways,
I mean, we don't really have to talk about anything. We can kill some time, but uh, excuse me.
a little heads up now. I will be taking off at 10 minutes till 4.
Oh, wow. And I think Doug is going to be gone next week, so we're not gonna have a class next week.
Where's you sure about that?
Just talk to him.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to be gone too, and since we're both going to be gone, we're just going to make it. We're just going to skip it because I'm going. I actually we sold a couple of the Livo 2 machines to the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm going over to Arizona to install them at the Cardinals facility.
How'd you get a hold of them?
It's not me. I didn't do it, but they already have 2 machines in their possession. They're about 6 years old, so they're upgrading their machines. So we're going over there to basically I'm gonna have them delivered here, and then I'm gonna drive them over.
How long does the installation take?
I don't know, about probably it's not necessarily just the installation. Once we get them installed, the installation probably we can have the installation done in a matter of probably about half hour. But it's going to be training them on the new systems.
So I got a fun one for you.
Hmm.
I'll answer the question. Today's topic is pretty much 22nd through 27th Amendments. And then we'll do a couple Q&A shows before starting again. So it turns out I think we talked about this, Ron, where I told you that Chief Justice John Marshall had actually ruled in Barron versus Baltimore. Did I tell you about that one?
Mm-mm.
He basically stated that the incorporation doctrine was not valid. He stated the Bill of Rights did not apply to the states. And, that's so out of character for him. So someone this morning gave me a possible example why. Marshall was a slave owner, and he didn't want the federal government to have the power to take away his slaves.
Huh.
It kind of rings true, doesn't it? I haven't had a chance to go verify that yet, but that sounds like something that's quite plausible, I would think.
Very interesting indeed.
Yeah, I thought you might like that one. I started a little firestorm last night on the message boards by talking about incorporation doctrine.
Oh, here, let me share something with you. I'll actually share it on the screen just because it's just fun to talk about. So this is a story that was in Patch. There's a felon found with a ghost gun in Banning. So there's just a little story. This is like this is what they call a polymer 80 little pistol that somebody, it's like 80% lower that somebody made into a firearm. Anyway, he was a felon and he couldn't have it. And I said, my response was, this is a lame story. I look forward to the day when society is no longer terrified of firearms and the media stops perpetuating fear. So this guy, Mr. M, chimes in and he says, the media stopped perpetuating fear? What a crock. Do the parents of the kids at Uvalde, Sandy Hook, or Columbine, the relatives of the dead at the church, synagogue, or the survivors in Orlando and Vegas blame the media? Of course not. They rightly condemn the shooters who are given easy access to assault-style weapons. As long as that continues, most Americans will remain fearful. So I kind of went on the offensive and I said, okay, there, Mr. Virtue Signaler, it's a statistical fact that more lives are saved each year by the use of firearms. Ask Obama CDC. Whether used or brandished, that are taken by the hands of mentally deranged to enter gun-free zones and mow down defenseless individuals. You care nothing about saving lives. You only want to force your idea of morality on society at the expense of the rights enumerated by the founding documents of this country. Sell your virtue elsewhere, signaling elsewhere. Well, clearly, that kind of contradicts what I believe, but I'm sure that they believe all that. So I'm just going to roll with it for the sake of brevity. So the guy says, I'm proud to virtue signal. And there's a reason why I'm doing this. I want to say I'm proud to signal virtue instead of lies and conspiracy theories. You don't need an AR-15 to protect yourself. And I never at any point talked about AR-15, right, or assault weapons. I just talked about the Second Amendment as a whole. I believe that our nation's capital is a gun-free zone, but that didn't stop your friends on January 6th. So I just kind of said, dude, you're far too ignorant and not worth my time. Perhaps if you read more than watch TV, we could have more intelligent dialogue. Come to find out, so this guy says we need to stop the attacks on both sides, spread love, not hate. And in here, it was divulged that this Mr. M is literally the city clerk in Beaumont.
Interesting. How many guns? First of all, what's an assault weapon? And second of all, how many guns were there on January 6th?
Right, exactly. But anyway, I said the very interesting. Thank you. And so I said I absolutely agree, but we also need to have intellectual honesty. When one side has no desire to be intellectually honest, there could be no foundation for meaningful or productive discourse. Historically speaking, one side has operated with a willingness to compromise with the other as liberties have been relinquished. But there comes a time when enough liberties have been relinquished that the side who was willing to compromise begins to push back and no longer compromise. Until this reality can be addressed, there could be no forward progress. Love alone will not fix this. So anyway, he kind of goes into his like, yeah, I'm proud city clerk of Beaumont, and da 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 da. And he's like he's asked me when have I ever proposed to compromise on anything, and I'm just a trumper. Anyway, whatever. And he makes a valid point here, but it's a straw man against me, but he makes a valid point about, oh yeah, today your buds fly F Biden banners on the same flagpole as the Stars and Stripes. We will not make progress until the insurrectionists and obstructionists are not in control. But he talked about how basically the hypocrisy of respect the presidency, but we don't respect the president. Anyway, I understand what he's saying, and he's not 100% wrong, but at the same time, he's not. There's questions as to whether or not he's the president. So, but we can't really say much of that on YouTube. Anyway, the point I'm making is this is where I really laid into him.
Well, when the guy flat out lies right to your face on TV, I mean, you don't respect someone who does that.
So, Steve, you've been gradually co-opted by Marxist ideology and have no idea. You espouse concepts that give centralized authority at whatever level absolute control, and it's painfully obvious you don't understand this. When I said historically speaking, I was not referring to any specific thing you or I have done. I was speaking in general terms of the conservatives in the United States over the span of the nearly 100 years have gradually ceded power and control to the likes of people who think like you. Clearly, you're unfamiliar with the writings of Max Horkheimer, Theodore Adorno, Herbert Marcuse, but you absolutely adhere to their ideologies, specifically the principle of repressive tolerance. Moreover, you do not study real history or have no concept of what truth is. The only truth you know is what the media, government, and school textbooks tell you. I would never call you stupid, but venture to guess that you're probably a pleasant, well-meaning man with a good heart. You simply do not understand that you've been fooled by a system that you believe to believe certain things as truth that which are not. History is not taught at any level of school, from elementary to postgraduate, with the notion of understanding events. It's taught to form a mindset which you possess. This does not make you stupid, but the fact that you're not curious as to inconsistencies in society does make me question whether you have the capacity to critically think. And for someone to hold position that you do and not be able to critically think is of great concern and makes me wish I could vote in Beaumont elections. Anyway,
making friends.
Oh yeah, I love to do that. I love to make friends. Anyway, that was my. I know you as a fellow debater online can appreciate that.
Yeah, my best line today was the fact that you can't make your argument without an insult would lead the casual reader to think that your arguments don't hold up on their own. And then the same guy came back and he said, obviously, you've never taken constitutional law. And of course, you know how I respond to that one. What makes you think they teach the actual original intent of the Constitution in constitutional law? It's the last thing they teach.
Oh, my God.
Hello, everyone. Just so you all know that Doug is going to be late today. He had a really, really bad excuse. Now he got out of his other class late, and people are talking to him and wanting to buy books or what have you. So he will be here probably about 15 to 20 minutes late. So Ron and I are going to do our best to entertain you. And then I have to leave 10 minutes early. What else we got going on in the world? here's a fun one. You know about the Nord Stream 2 blowing up, right?
I heard about it. Yeah.
So I've got an article here that talks about the Navy doing research and development in the Baltic Sea, an exercise that just got over with about a week ago. And
real quick, did you? There was an article that just came out again on Patch. I get updates when articles are posted. That California is going to mandate employers to disclose pay scale ranges.
What's the point of that?
To create a rift between the working class and the people at the upper levels of the business.
Okay.
No, that's my hunch. My hunch is that they're trying to stir up people. You make too much money.
We were talking yesterday. There's about 5 bills on Gavin's desk right now that he's got a chance to veto, and everyone's trying to call him and get him to veto like he ever listens. But given that he's got an election coming up and he can't allow it to seem close, he's got to be a little bit on his good behavior for the next month and a half. And, given his presidential aspirations, which are not very well hidden, he is in Texas right now, despite California banning their public employees for traveling to Texas. If that makes sense to you.
Okay.
Because he's a hypocrite, in case you hadn't noticed.
Never.
Nah, just dining at the French Laundry.
Let's see. Oh, this is studio. I don't want the studio. I want.
So last week, was it Tracy or was it Amy that recommended I watch a Peter Thiel video? Was that you, Tracy? Well, in any event, I did watch it, and it was outstanding. And I've changed my position on Peter Thiel to some degree. So,
I think it was probably Amy.
Oh, talk about the governor of Texas. That they had 3 really good candidates in the primary besides Abbott. And any one of those 3 would have shut down the border.
Yes, I believe that was Amy. I think you're probably right.
Yep. Unfortunately, the GOP in Texas works just like a lot of those state GOPs. They have got a monopoly.
Let's talk about DeSantis.
Okay.
Because I know that there's going to be some. There's going to be, well, you and I have already talked about it, so it's not like it's going to be revelatory. But expressing my belief on, I believe that DeSantis is not what he says he is. I believe that he is going to. I believe that he will. I believe that he's been put there as a plant to divide the Republicans.
Well, the establishment, they certainly want the establishment GOP not voting for Trump. That's for sure. Now, let's say he did get in 2024 for whatever reason. The question is, would he do anything to drain the swamp? Would he go after would he break up the FBI? Would he go after any of the, culprits from Spygate or any of the other, would he investigate, election integrity? Would he do any of that? And my answer to that is, well, in Florida, they had a pretty good canvas, and they found all kinds of shenanigans in the Florida canvas, stuff that was worth looking into. Mm-hmm. And the only thing DeSantis' little election integrity unit has found were 20 people that were felons that voted illegally. So his commitment to election integrity is not what the rubber hasn't met the road yet. Now, has he been great on some other issues? Yeah. Is he establishment? Well, look at all the money he's raising, all the corporate money he's raising. It's the biggest governor war chest in history, and he doesn't need it to win his election. So he's in a position to be kingmaker, which is a pretty nice place to be if you're going to be a candidate. Would he be the worst president? No.
Well, I still maintain that I think if when she wins and if she is a good governor in Arizona, I believe that Carrie Lake is one of the strongest candidates to carry the torch.
Yeah, and she was on Tucker last night and let something slip that made it seem very obviously that she has bigger aspirations. But she did say she'd wanted to be governor for 8 years, and she's got time. So I do not think she's a 2024.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, it wouldn't be 2024 anyway. It'd be
28.
28 at the earliest.
Well, she's obviously eligible to run in 2024, but I don't think she would.
No.
And she's got to prove she's back. She can back up her rhetoric for this year.
Derek, you said Gene Decode does a good explanation of what you're talking about. Not sure Republicans are going to solve our problems west of today. Okay. What I'm just curious. What obviously within the confines of what you can type. What did he say? I'm not a big Gene Decode guy.
I would agree with that one.
Anybody who says that, anybody who calls cargo ships anchored off of the coast battle groups, carrier battle groups, and as allegedly a former naval officer, I question.
Is he still talking about the Galactic Federation?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, you lose me at Galactic Federation. There's quite a few people in that corner of the internet that are still talking about that nonsense.
Yeah, I'm not sure about what he says on the Galactic Federation, but he probably is. Sidetracked.
No, it's just it drives me nuts when these people start making stuff up with absolutely zero objective, credible evidence whatsoever. That's one thing to say, okay, have a theory about something that actually happened. But when you start making stuff up out of thin air, come on. Unfortunately, people follow him.
And well, if that's what he's saying, Derek, then I would then he and I are on the same page. Because I don't believe that I do not believe that voting alone is going to fix our problems. When you get Republicans in there, they're going to be establishment Republicans for the most part. Well, that's beginning to change, and that by no means am I suggesting that it's not important to vote, but I think our system is so corrupted that voting alone, election to election, isn't. It's going to take. If voting alone was going to fix this, it would take decades.
This election is about survival. You've got to stop the Democrats in their tracks in November. That has to happen. That their agenda must be halted. That being said, if we're still playing the right versus left, red versus blue game, and I've been saying this since I've known you, Ron, if you're playing the right versus left game, Republican versus Democrat, then you're still playing their game. Even if you win, you've lost. The country doesn't get fixed until we stop voting along political ideologies and factions. The country's not fixed till we go back to original intent and become a federal republic. That doesn't happen with political parties in power.
Right.
So the question is, how do you get them out of power? And I have got my amendment. You want to talk about it?
Far away.
Okay. The amendment to defund and defang the political parties is very simple. The only people that can contribute to a political campaign are registered voters. This takes the corporations and the PACs out of the deal. If corporations were people, they'd be eligible to vote. Since they are not, means the Supreme Court was wrong. You keep the contribution limits exactly as they are currently, because they do a pretty good job in that, and that includes non-tangible, in-kind contributions. Best you can do is endorsements. The other part of it is campaign contributions cannot cross state or county lines. You can only contribute if you're eligible to vote in the district for that person. Makes it real simple. What you just did is take the entire purpose of having a national political party out of the game. People will start voting for local, have people that actually represent them instead of representing a national party that can be corrupted by special interests. How you like it?
I like it. You're
Yeah, I
gonna
think it
have
could
to
fly.
get. You're gonna have to get the. You're gonna have to get people on board with it, though.
Yeah, well, that's the first step is to start playing around with it, bounce it around off some other good minds. Derek, I didn't see half of your posts that Ron was quoting, so I'm not going to be able to comment on anything you did. The last thing I see from you said, yes, exactly. Anything before that, I didn't show up in my chat. Thank you, Tracy. Yeah, on both sides have always said, get the money out of politics. We hate foreign interference, but nobody ever does anything about it, obviously, because they don't really mean it. So how would you get that amendment through? Congress won't propose it. Maybe you get the states to do it. And that's the other thing you're talking about, how to really fix this country. If you expect the federal government to fix itself, you're in for a really long wait. The only people who have the power to rein in the out-of-control central government is the states. So we'll find out if Carrie Lake is that governor, whether she's willing to take that step and openly defy or openly reassert state sovereignty. That's what I'm waiting to see. The first governor who does that, I'll be happy. Who is talking about conspiracy? Ron, you okay?
What's that? Yeah, I'm good. I'm engaging in debate.
Where are you doing? Oh, you still on that chat?
Oh yeah, no, that's so the story about the California. It's a mandate employers to disclose pay ranges. So I just said, nah, there will be no negative repercussions from this. Nah, not at all. Some guys, this is one of the lefties on there. He says, you don't like freedom of information and actual free market capitalism. Got it. I'm like, freedom of information has nothing to do with that. And everything to do with sowing division between people who make more money than others.
Freedom of information has to do with governments. It has nothing to do with private corporations. Now, I'm okay. I'm fine for transparency, but you also have some right to privacy. Brave Ministries, you're asking for proof of something, and you're saying there's a conspiracy we're discussing, and I do not know what you're referring to or what proof you're asking for. Could you articulate a bit more clearly? Or I'm missing some chats, because I'm obviously not seeing everything posted. No, Conservative Cowboy, I did not see your question. If you mind retape posting it, maybe I'll see it. And I don't know why YouTube's been doing this. I don't know, I think a refresh will help.
You talking to me, or to?
I'm missing a lot of. I'm missing a lot of chats. Okay. You're asking something about Gene Decode. I do not follow him. And I do not intend to. Well, let's see. We've got 306 right now, Ron, and you are. I need your help so I don't have to do a monologue here. So,
all right.
Put down the keyboard. All right, let's see if that works. Let's see if I can do this on the tablet.
What?
Maybe I can
go on your phone. Open another screen. What?
I was talking about why I'm missing chat. I'm going to try to do it from my tablet.
Oh.
See if that works. It might be a good idea.
If you're from Orange County, are you aware of Peggy Hall is suing Orange County for not following the law on their emergency regarding? I did not know that.
I did. I know Peggy. She's great. She's fantastic. She speaks at a lot of local events. Okay, I got my tablet open. Let's see if I missed anything. I'm going to scroll up and see if I see Constitutional Cowboys question. And no, I still don't see it. Yeah, Peggy Hall. She was Ron. She was at. I believe she spoke at the Clay Clark event that you and I were at.
I think so. That name rings a bell.
Yeah, I mean, I know I've met her on multiple occasions. Devil Dog's asking me, have I ever looked into the scriptures that are in the Constitution? Yeah, Doug talks about that a little bit. Anything particular you're mentioning?
Didn't miss it to me. I haven't read that. What scriptures in the Constitution?
Oh shoot. We should know this. And I'll tell you why I'm. What is his name that does the biblical ministry, biblical history? That's an 8-week course, and it's Kirk Cameron's involved in it, and it's really good. I'm on week 2 of that, and they're going to be talking about that. 1,200 scriptures in it. All right.
Faith and founding the Bible and the Constitution.
No, it's
the Constitution does not mention God, Jesus, or Christianity, and the First Amendment clarifies that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. Yeah, and the that's one of the things with church, the separation of church and state. People think that that separation of church and state means that you can't have any biblical principles in the government, which is that's not the opposite of what it meant. The Bible and the Constitution. Perhaps I should probably look in a different search engine, and then I would get different results.
Are there 1,200 words in the Constitution? First Amendment has 16 scriptures in it. Okay, let's take a look at that. First Amendment. How can it have 16 scriptures when it's only one paragraph long?
Yeah, I know.
All right. I'm not getting it. You guys want to start putting in your bets for when Doug gets here? I'll go with 320.
I'll go 325.
Ooh. You think there's gonna be more traffic? Have you ever driven with Doug?
Oh no, I couldn't.
Well, he's a former truck driver, so he does have skills. But let me put it this way: there's a few white knuckle incidences. He drives very aggressively on the freeway.
Oh, he does.
Yeah,
I did not know that. Oh, I thought he was
no.
I thought he was.
No, until he gets distracted talking, they don't get himself put behind a car that he doesn't need to be behind for like 2 minutes because he distracts himself. But when he wants to get there, yeah, he's very skilled. He knows how to weave in and out of traffic.
Well, I have a tremendous amount of respect for truck drivers because all they do is drive. So
yeah,
I mean they drive for a living. So the fact that they are, they pay close attention to the road. Yep.
I don't have as good of visibility out of my side view mirror as I used to, so I don't have I tend not to change lanes a whole lot. Plus, then I still have a little bit of emotional scars from getting sideswiped by a Tesla earlier this year. Little flashbacks. No damage done. $2,400 worth of cosmetics. Now, if anybody wants to know who the most aggressive driver I've been in a car with in the last year, it would be Mr. Ron Partain.
I'm a good
It's true,
driver.
though. Oh, you're a very good driver. Plus, you got the right car to be able to do it. You got all kinds of visibility with a convertible.
Yes.
Yep. My car does not have the visibility or the acceleration. Although it is running better lately, knock on wood. I have to get up to the Pregnancy Resource Center in Fallbrook today by 5 o'clock to drop off a bunch of clothes. That'll take some aggressive driving. All right, what else is going on in the world today worth talking about?
Nothing. I didn't really get any. Did anybody talk about what I was saying about DeSantis? Did anybody have any opinions?
I didn't see anything. Hey, here's one just came through.
Hmm.
In a 14-1 vote, Ted Cruz is the only nay vote. The Senate Rules Committee approves reforms to the Electoral Count Act, a bill in response to January 6th.
Electoral count.
Yeah, they're trying to make it harder so the vice president can harder to challenge elections going forward. But I believe that takes an amendment. They're trying to change the amendment with a congressional bill, which I don't think is constitutional. Thoughts? Oh, this is the one Liz Cheney was proposing a couple weeks ago.
Well, then clearly I don't like it.
Yeah, there you go.
Who was who voted yes on it? And okay. Wait. If Liz Cheney is proposing and she's in the House, how in the world does she propose it? And then
this is the Senate Rules. This is the Senate Rules Committee. So they basically. I see Klobuchar.
Oh my God, he's early. Much
compared
earlier.
to what I thought it would be. Yeah. Well, let's just say I probably, if I'd have gotten pulled over in the areas where there wasn't traffic, I wouldn't have gotten a ticket for speeding. I would have gotten a ticket for flying too low.
Well, we did have somebody who said that you were a very aggressive driver. I didn't know that. I thought you were a slow driver.
No, I can be very aggressive. I can be. I tend to lighten up when I have passengers, but when I'm by myself, I'm super aggressive.
I said you were a very skilled driver.
Yeah, well, that too.
Oh, I didn't make any reference to skilled or unskilled.
I drove a big rig for 20 years, so
allow me to finish. I know that, and that's what I was saying, that I have respect for you because you did drive a big rig truck.
Well, what I was going to say is the good news is I'm very skilled because I used to drive a big rig. The bad news is I tend to want to be in the slow lane, and then I realize it and have to move over and get back into the faster lanes. And I think Brady noticed this. I start gravitating towards the slow lane, and then I complain I'm stuck behind someone, and then I take off again. But it's just old habits die hard, man, driving a rig. But no, it's good to be here. I have a Constitution class in Fallbrook on Tuesday mornings, and I tend to go out to lunch with students. If I get out of there by 2, I'm typically here by 3. I at 10 till 2 said I gotta go. I started getting up. Then the waiter overheard us talking about CRT and Constitution and had questions. So I talked to the waiter for 10 minutes. I get out of the parking lot. Someone overhears us talking, me and somebody else. Oh, hey, that's talk to them for 5 or 10 minutes. Get to my truck. Someone's walking by. You got kick-ass stickers on the back of your truck. Here I go again. So I wound up talking to 3 people. By the time I pulled out of that parking lot, it was 20 after 2. So, but it's all good. It's all good. Okay, enough of my excuses.
All good in the hood.
All good in the hood. Enough of my excuses. How does life go with you?
It's going great. Let's jump into the Constitution.
Yeah, we
already
have 25,
17 minutes.
26, and 27,
Yeah.
so we will finish the Constitution likely today. But we've got, like we've talked about before, the shows that we're going to field some questions. And let's see, this, We the People, I changed my name topics. Brave Ministries used to be We the People. Okay, Joseph. As I know you as. All right. So it's good to see all of you. 25th Amendment is huge. You've heard about the 25th, I'm sure. They're always talking about wanting to use it against Trump or Biden or somebody. So the 25th Amendment is very appropriate to what we see in the news of late. You would be proud of me, by the way, Warhamster and Ron, because my drink today, mainly because I was flying through the door, is water.
Attaboy.
Attaboy. Yeah, Brady's been hounding me about changing my diet. Now, that said...
You mean away from liquid candy?
Yeah. So on Sunday, I'm at an event, and a woman named Laura, who hasn't seen me in months, says, "You're smaller." And I've lost about 20 pounds in the last about 6 months.
That's always nice to hear when someone notices.
Yeah, well, people when
Did you
see
do it
all the time don't
deliberately?
notice.
Did you do it deliberately?
No, I'm so damn busy, I don't get around to eating. So, but then when I eat, I still put junk in my mouth. So anyway, all right, so 25th Amendment. Page 32, if you have this pocket Constitution. And for those of you who are watching live, I would love to see what you have to say in the chat room. I do pay attention to it the best I can. Pop is anti-water. It's a diuretic, but that's beside the point. The only pop, and you've got to be from the East Coast because only people on the East Coast call it pop. It's the only soda the only soda I drink pretty much is Dr. Pepper or root beer, maybe Mr. Pibb if I'm really desperate.
Soda's Midwest. Out here we say soft drinks.
Well, out here I think everything's just a Coke. But anyway, and the only way I will drink Coke is with bourbon. Okay, but anyway. In case, I'm sorry.
Nah, I just had people from the Midwest get a soda. That Minnesota accent.
A soda, yeah. Devil Dog, I like soda. Yeah. Devil Dog, good to see you, brother. Good to see all of you. Yeah, I've been busy, and it's a good thing.
Devil Dog, I got something for you.
Navy. Yeah, I'm gonna have to start. Well, my Arkansas Razorbacks lost to Texas A&M. My Raiders are 0-3. So I'm gonna have to start watching Navy games just to, so I can get rid of all my tears. But anyway, okay. Amendment 25. Amendment 25. In case of the removal of the president from office or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president. It doesn't get much clearer than that. Prior to the 25th Amendment, it was never laid out that clearly. There was confusion when things happened. Woodrow Wilson's a great example. When he was infirmed, what do we do? Is the vice president acting as president? Are they president? When Kennedy was assassinated, is Johnson president? Is he acting as president until we get a president? What do we do? And so they pretty much acted based on precedent being that in the past, typically if you lost your president, the vice president would act as president and then wind up just becoming president. But nothing in the Constitution had laid it out this clearly until the 25th Amendment. Now, that all said, I love my taxi service. Devil Dog. I have to admit, I have a friend who was in the Marine Corps, and I've never been inside his vehicle. He always rides with me. So, Devil Dog, you have a point. Okay. In case of the removal of the president of office or his death or resignation, notice removal. That would be impeachment. Or the consequences of conviction of impeachment, which has not yet happened in history yet. We've had 3 presidents impeached 4 times, no removal from office. Or of his death or resignation, the vice president shall become president whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president. So notice this follows right after it says vice president's president. Okay, vice president becomes president. Now you have an empty spot in the vice presidency. What do you do next? And it tells you, whenever there is a vacancy in the office of the vice president, the president shall nominate a vice president who shall take office upon confirmation by a majority vote of both houses of Congress. Both houses. Typically, when it comes to electoral difficulties or whatever, the House elects the president, and the Senate elects the vice president. In this case, if a vice president is nominated by the president to fill a vacancy, both houses are required. It's a majority vote. It is not 2/3. So that goes back to a question of, well, gosh, I've heard there's this video floating around. Well, Biden could be removed, and then Harris would become president, and Newsom would be brought in, be nominated by her to be vice president, and then she would resign, and that'd make Newsom president without ever getting a single vote. Well, they leave out the fact that both houses of Congress would have to confirm such an appointment and such a nomination. That video leaves that part out. So for those of you who are fearful of that scenario, remember there is a reality in there that Congress must confirm that appointment, both houses.
And with the Senate being 50-50, there's no vice president there to break the tie.
Exactly. So, I tell you what, if the vice presidency vacancy was to occur right now, we would probably be, for the 15th time in history, without a vice president for a significant amount of time.
Yep, I think the record is 2.5 years, and I believe that was, oh God, I've got the list right here. Coolidge was a little over 2 years.
All right, very good. All right, so now let's continue. Whenever this is Section 3 of the 25th Amendment. Now, this is where this has come into play in my lifetime. We'll talk about it in a minute. Whenever the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate. The president pro tempore is not president of the Senate. That's the vice president. President pro tempore is not the majority leader necessarily. The president pro tempore is chosen by the Senate to fill the spot that is normally held by the vice president as president of the Senate when the president of the Senate is not there. The person who wields the gavel. Once again, it's not necessarily always, and not usually, the majority leader. But it could be. It's whoever they want to vote for. So whenever the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the vice president as acting president. Notice here in this situation, vice president doesn't become president. They become acting president. Now, a time that this happened within our lifetime, I know there's been a couple more recent, but the one I think is the one that most people are familiar with, at least whoever is 50 and older is most familiar with, is Ronald Reagan. Remember when Ronald Reagan was shot by Hinckley, and he had to go into surgery and all that, and he was going to be incapacitated for a while he healed. So
you mean you mean the guy that was good friends with the Bush family?
We're not going to get into that conversation today, Mr. Storm Chaser.
I'm the one who taught you that.
So you're the one that's holding his leash,
I knew that
right? Yeah. So you're the one holding his leash. Is that what you're saying?
No, just saying. I'm just saying as like, yeah, the 25th Amendment, because wasn't just out of curiosity, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too deeply, but wasn't Bush essentially forced on Reagan?
Yeah, the excuse we were given in the media was that Reagan was concerned that he might not have the Northeast United States vote because it was more liberal out there, and he was considered this raving conservative lunatic. And so in order to secure the moderate Republican vote in the Northeast, he brought on moderate George H.W. Bush as his running mate so that he could also secure the votes in the Northeast. Of course, after 2020, hindsight being 2020, nobody really gave a rat's doo-doo if this New England states voted for Reagan, which they would have probably anyway, but because he was so popular, because he had pretty much the whole country secured. Now, that said, there is, of course, a deeper story. The Bushes being globalists and tied into certain
institutions.
Thank you. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm Mr. Constitution. You can be
That's
Mr.
right.
You can be Mr. I'm
Storm
going to chase
chaser.
after all these rabbit trails. I'm going to be Mr. Constitution and get back to.
I just happened to do an entire video on the Bush and Clinton crime families and a follow-up to it called American Fascists. So if you want to see those rabbit holes, go check out my channel.
Well, I sent you a link, by the way. I don't know if you watched that video yet.
Which one?
So now I'm on another rabbit trail, but I got to mention this real quick. Pat says, "Oh my! I can't believe I caught you live." Oh well, good to see you, Pat. So Breyer, former Supreme Court Justice Breyer, who just retired, had a interview with Chris Wallace. And guess what they mocked and had the most fun talking about? Our position on Marbury versus Madison.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's a good video. And the gentleman who I sent that was talking about it on his video that I sent Brady the link to. I hadn't sent it to you yet, Ron, because I was driving. It was bad enough I was texting while I was driving, but I did send it.
You
to
were
Warhamster.
texting and driving?
Yes, I admit my guilt. Well, I mean, I was at a red light, but technically, I'm still texting and driving.
I don't think I got the video, so if you could resend it, that would be great.
Yeah, I texted it. Says you got it. But anyway, all right, so let's get back to where we're supposed to be. So shoot those rabbits, get back on the main trail. All right, so whenever the president, okay, get back to Hinckley, that's right. So Reagan knew he was going to be out, so he wrote a letter to Congress saying, hey, I'm going to be out for a while. So vice president shall be acting president until I write you a letter otherwise. He was following Section 3 of the 25th Amendment. So let me read it again now to familiarize us with what we're talking about, because we chased so many rabbits a moment ago. Whenever the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that he is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the vice president as acting president. So now that situation, for those of you who are old enough to remember, turned out kind of funny, because Alexander Haig was Secretary of State. He thought Secretary of State was a third in line under the succession. He didn't realize it went through, the Speaker of the House and the President pro tempore first. And at the time that Reagan wrote that letter to Congress, and he was asked for the vice president to be acting president, Vice President Bush was out of the country. He was in, I think, China actually at the time. And so Alexander Haig thought the acting president role came upon him, and he said such to mainstream media outlets. And of course, the left being the left and the attackers being the attackers, and them not liking Alexander Haig, whether or not he was a good guy or not doesn't matter. The fact is the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment were not fans of him because he worked with, Reagan, and Reagan was the Trump of that day in the sense of how much they hated him. Alexander Haig basically became a laughingstock, sort of like Reagan's vice president during his first term over the word potato. But anyway, that all said, this is in the Constitution. So if the president, he's like, man, I'm not going to be able to do my job. Writes a letter. I temporarily cannot do my job. Here's my letter to say so. When the opposite is true, I'll let you know by another letter. That's basically what it says. Okay. Now, here's for the fun, Section 4. There's a lot to read. There's a lot there, but it really ties into modern battles. And a lot of people have these assumptions that are not necessarily true, about how you get rid of a president if he's unfit for duty. When it came to Trump, a lot of people were thinking certain things. When it comes to Biden, people are thinking certain things, and it's just not completely true. So we're going to go through this line by line so that you fully understand the process of how a president, if he's unfit or he's considered to have the inability to carry out his duties for any reason, how that process happens. Remember, the Founding Fathers, whenever they did anything, they wanted it to be a difficult process. They didn't want an easy mutiny, so to speak. Everything in the Constitution has checks and balances and procedures that make it difficult to get it done so that something cannot be done too easily. But at the same time, they recognized they couldn't make something impossible. Great example is ratification of amendments. I talked about this with my Fallbrook class this morning. Ratification of amendments with the Articles of Confederation required a 100% unilateral. Jeez Louise. 100% vote that everybody agreed. With the Constitution, they realized that made it impossible sometimes because Rhode Island sometimes did not want to be a part of the unanimous consensus. It had to be unanimous. Rhode Island often wasn't a part of that group. So they realized with the Constitution, they wanted amendments to the Constitution to be difficult, tough, but not impossible. So 2/3 to propose, 3/4 to ratify. 2/3 of either both houses of Congress or 2/3 of the states to propose, and then 3/4 of the states, either by convention or by state legislatures, to ratify. So it's tough, it's difficult, it's a lengthy process, as they want it to be, because they didn't want our government altered too easily, and to allow the power people to get in there and just start messing with it too easily. But they knew it need not be impossible. Same thing with removing a president if he is not fit for carrying out his duties or he is incapable for reasons other than health reasons. They wanted to make sure it was tough, that mutiny was not something that could happen real easily, but that it wasn't impossible. So whenever the vice president, it says in section 4, and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other body as Congress may by law provide, transmit to the President pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office of acting President. So, two groups must get together in order for that process to begin. Either the principal officers of the executive departments or a body that Congress by law provides as Congress. So that's the House and the Senate together. And the second group is a person, the vice president. Congress cannot get rid of the president, get him out of office without the vice president being in on it. This was seen as being a check and balance against Congress just getting rid of a president because they didn't like him. If the very person who ran for office with the president is also believing that the president is incapable of carrying out his duties, then the process can begin. Now, that said, there's more to it than just that. That starts the process. So we've got one group of people, either principal officers or a group of people created by Congress, both houses, and the vice president saying, hey, we think the president is unable to discharge the duties of his office. Here's our letter, Speaker, Senate pro tempore. Now, is the president just suddenly gone? No. Here's what it says in the next paragraph. Thereafter, when the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless, so stop right there. So the president has a response to give. Hey, they're full of it. I'm fine. Here's my letter. So he resumes his duties. Now, The group that wrote the original letter saying, hey, he's not capable, has a choice. Either they can say, okay, president says he's fine, we'll stop right there, that's it, he resumes his duties. Or they can say, no. We are in firm belief that he is not able to discharge his duties. He's in the head is thinking otherwise. That's why he wrote that letter. We are going to continue to push. Let's read the whole paragraph now for context, or at least most of it. Thereafter, when the president transmits to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives his written declaration that no inability exists, he shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the vice president and a majority of either the principal officers of the executive department or of such other body as Congress may by law provide transmit within 4 days to the president pro tempore of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives within 4 days after the president says he's fine their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. Thereupon, Congress shall decide the issue. So, we got 3 steps here. First, the vice president and this other group, whoever it may be, principal officers of the executive branch or a body that's designated by Congress, says, hey, he can't do it. Step number 2, president can say, I can do it. Step number 3, they say, no, he can't. We're sticking with our original letter. If we get to step 3, it goes to Congress. If it's step 1 and the president doesn't respond, he's gone. If we get to step 2 where he responds, but there's no step 3, he stays in office. But if they say he should be gone, he says he shouldn't be, and then step 3 is achieved where they say, no, we're sticking with our original letter. This man's got to be removed from office. Then it goes to Congress. And notice it says Congress, not the House, not the Senate. Congress. So in other words, both houses. Thereupon, Congress shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours for that purpose, if not in session. If they're not in session, they're at home, they're enjoying the fruits of their crimes, whatever, then they've got 48 hours to get back there to decide the issue. If they're not in session. If the Congress within 21 days after the receipt of the latter written declaration, or if Congress is not in session within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 vote of both houses. So it takes 2/3 vote by both houses. Once again, let's make it difficult. Not impossible, but difficult. That the president is, in fact, unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall continue to discharge the same as acting president. So Congress gets back together, 2/3 or more in each house says, you know what, guys, you're right, he can't carry out his duties, he's gone. But if he doesn't get 2/3 of both houses to go against him, he resumes his position as president. He is not removed. It takes 2/3 of both houses. Otherwise, the president shall resume the powers and duties of his office. Bottom of page 33. Now, that's quite a discussion. And usually when I'm in class, I get rapid-fire questions coming at me because everybody wants answers. So let me answer some of them that you might have. And if you do have questions, throw them in the chat room. I'm paying attention. So, let's say they want to get rid of Biden. Now, Kamala Harris would have to be in on it, and the principal officers of the executive branch, or a group that Congress puts together, which I'm sure that Pelosi would love to be a part of that, but guess what? It's not just Pelosi. The Senate has to be involved putting together that group too. Once again, the Senate has to be involved. This is why they're not doing something. Everybody's like, whoa, everybody was positive, 25th Amendment. Not while they don't have full control of the Senate. Because they know they won't get it. They don't even want to try unless they're positive they'll get it. They might get it, but they're not positive. So they're not going to do it. One thing I've noticed about the enemy is they do not push a vote unless they're positive they're going to get it. A lot of these bills die on the floor of Congress because they're not positive they're going to get the yes vote. So that's one thing I've noticed about the enemy. So they are not going to try to pull this 25th Amendment on Biden or anybody else unless they're positive they have the vote. And they weren't positive, and they haven't been positive they got the Senate. That's why they're pushing for D.C. to become a state, or Puerto Rico to become a state, or to gain seats in this election. As otherwise, they've got no sure thing on anything. They want to make sure it's a sure thing. So now, that all said, what happens if they get control of the Senate, they keep control of the House? It could get interesting. They'll first of all start doing like California's doing, start passing anything and everything they can without any chance of stopping them.
Okay, Ronald.
And number two, if they are positive that they've got the vote to get rid of Biden, they very well could do something like that. And 2/3 of the Senate. So each house, 2/3. Thank you, Pat, for the question. And if the VP is not qualified because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, that we don't have a VP, and if we don't have a VP, then that cannot be carried out. There has to be a VP in office in order for that to be carried out. If there is no VP, the VP cannot participate, and it requires the VP to participate. And you're right, she's not qualified, Lisa. I've got a lawsuit that says so. Thank you for bringing that up. Good questions in the chat room. Anybody else in the chat room have a question while I try to fish for questions from the War Hamster or Storm Chaser?
Now I'm good on this one.
Yeah, so I explained it well enough.
Yeah, let's talk about
Mr.
why.
Storm Chaser, how about you? Oh, okay, go ahead, War Hamster. Go ahead.
Well, Doug, you didn't talk about why they put the 25th Amendment in place.
Well, one of the biggest reasons for that is because the question came up, what would have happened if John F. Kennedy, when he was shot, assassinated, survived? Headshot, but he survived. He was unable to carry out his different duties. When Woodrow Wilson was president, they recalled, and there's writings about this, they didn't know what to do. There's a lot of people are convinced his wife was running the country. Because Woodrow Wilson had a stroke while in office. And they basically pulled the Weekend at Bernie's stuff, man. They propped him up and the country went on and nobody really knew about it until later.
So there's
Boy,
precedent.
that sounds familiar.
There was precedent for Hillary.
Yeah.
or Dr. Jill.
Wow.
All right, guys, I got to hit the road.
All right. See ya.
All right,
See you
War
guys on
Hamster,
the flip
thank you
side.
for being here. All right, so yeah, the Kennedy assassination though is really what brought this up. You'll notice that the 25th Amendment was ratified in 1967. Wasn't very long after the assassination of Kennedy in the larger scheme of things. What if he had survived? And we had a vegetable for president, like we do today. Then what do you do? All right, so Derek, I do not talk about this to depress everybody. I'm just going through what's going on. So the question is then, well, how do you fix it? It begins with education. We need to know this if we're going to fight against the problems. Can't fix the vehicle in the driveway if you haven't read the owner's manual and have done a little bit about, a little bit of work on becoming a good, decent mechanic.
Well, and with respect, I don't think that. I think the system has grown to such an enormous level that simply just elections alone are not going to fix our problems.
No, I agree.
We are going to need outside help.
Well, the Leviathan has become so big that really all they do is just do whatever they can to feed it and keep it going.
I was I was reading. I'm reading this really interesting book right now. It's called Blue Communism. It was written by a guy who grew up in Romania, and he escaped Romania in like the early 1970s, and then at about 23 years old, and then came over here. So he sees very clearly the parallels of what happened in Romania as a communist country to what is going on here, to the growing menace of Marxist, communist ideology.
Right.
And he talked in there about how, people in America thought that Reagan was so awesome because he destroyed communism. And the point that he made in the very beginning of his book is Reagan didn't destroy communism. Communism destroyed communism.
Question by Pat. Doug, would this also be used to remove the VP? The only way to remove the VP is to impeach him. Now, obviously, if the VP is completely out of whack and unable to carry out the duties, I'm sure they would follow a process similar to this to have him removed, or use something like an impeachment to remove him. But then, because you can't put in somebody else until the slot's empty. But from my studies, really the only way to remove the VP is the impeachment process.
Or force him to resign.
Well, Spiro Agnew knows all about that.
Right. But the point that I was making was that communism kills communism. So
right. Well, it
we
eats
are
itself from within.
Right, and we are essentially the system that we have now. People don't want to admit that we are essentially a socialistic, centralized, central planned economy. But for the most part,
and if we don't fix it, I don't know if this happened within my lifetime, but if we don't get it fixed, history shows that what happens to systems that don't get it fixed, which none of them ever did, by the way, once they started spiraling out of control, there was no turning back. But if once it gets to the point where they are under absolute despotism, then normally what always happens in these big civilizations, empires, societies, or whatever, once they spiral out of control, is they balkanize.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they break up into little pieces, and then the little pieces war at each other, and for power. And sometimes one of the bigger pieces might gain most or much of the land. But in the case of the Roman Empire, the Catholic Church decided to try to recapture the authoritarian splendor of the Roman Empire with the Holy Roman Empire, but that never really went over too well because the members were their own warring monarchies and didn't get along, and so while they all were on paper a part of the Holy Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire really didn't have as much power or control over everybody as they thought they did, or they claimed they did, should I say. That said, balkanization is always the result. So pick where you move to retire well, because that might be its own little country someday. Balkanization is historically, it's always, I keep saying typically. It is typical, but it's always the case. Always. Balkanization is always what happens once the collapse happens.
Is there a limit on how many times a president can be impeached? And the answer would be no. I mean, mm-mm. Now, here's an interesting question, and I'm going to ask it. Is it possible to impeach a president post-term?
No, because one of the results of removal from office, if convicted, is removal from office.
But is it possible to impeach a president for the things that he did while he was president?
No, because an impeachment is a political trial, not a criminal trial.
Okay.
It is possible to launch a criminal trial against them for crimes they committed, but the purpose of impeachment is a political trial to remove someone if they're a problem. How do you remove someone who's a problem if they've already been gone?
I remember there was there's a place on the internet where this guy used to post, kind of goes by the number 17, and there was a meme that was floating around when it had the Donald pointing at Obama and said the meme said, when I'm done, it'll be like you were never existed, or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And the general consensus amongst people who were discussing it was that they were going to use the impeachment process to impeach a previous president to nullify things that he had
They were
done.
already in place.
What's that?
Yeah, it does. That's not how it works.
Okay, so that's kind of why I'm asking the question.
Yeah, it's not how it works. If something's in place, even if it was done illegally, it's still in place. It still has to be removed legislatively or by amendment or whatever. Just because someone was removed from office as if they weren't doesn't mean that everything they did is null and void. That's not how it works.
Okay.
It still got done. It still happened. Whether it was right, wrong, or legal or not, doesn't change the fact that it happened.
Okay.
And so it still has to go through the process. Now, much of the Bar Association mixed in our so-called Constitution. Derek, explain. Bar Association that we have is the American Bar Association. It is connected to the International Bar Association. The original 13th Amendment was designed to get us away from the International Bar Association, or at least that was one of the reasons. In the sense of law and common law and certain aspects of English law being in our Constitution, of course. They were English colonists. English law was the law they lived under. Of course it was influential. But whether or not certain parts of those things are currently in force, I get into these discussions all the time. Well, the Bar Association was created originally, Derek, just so that there would be a collection of people who operate in that field. The problem was there were people claiming to practice law that did so without necessarily having the training or the schooling, and there was a fear that it would reduce the quality of the industry. So an association of barristers, BARRISTERS, which is basically means lawyer, originally came from the King's prosecutor. Originally is what a barrister was, but eventually became known as all lawyers. So an association of barristers, Bar Association, was formed to protect against that, so that only people who understood the system and followed certain standards and so on and so forth were in the industry. Now that said, I'm a firm believer that someone should not have to be a member of the bar in order to practice law. It should not be illegal. However, it would be like hiring a handyman that doesn't have a contractor's license. While they probably can still do the job, because they're not a part of a group, licensed or whatever, you are taking a chance as a consumer. And same thing with lawyers. By not being a member of the bar, as a consumer, you may be taking a chance because they don't have that quote-unquote standard accreditation, whatever. But nonetheless, so I'm not necessarily praising or defending the Bar Association, but in a sense that persons have to have so much schooling and so forth in order to be a member is good for the industry. The problem is, like any organization, it has consolidated its powers and become problematic, because that's what organizations of any kind with people do, because power and wealth is always a problem. All right, anybody else? All right, it's 3:56. I have time to field one more question if anyone wants to throw one in there. And I'm going, while you're thinking of questions, I'm going to go through the last two amendments.
I have to get this. This is my mom. She's had surgery today, so I've got to answer this call. So I'm going to duck out of here. When you're done, just let me know, and I'll kill the class.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, I'll send you a text after I leave the studio. All right, so final two amendments while I'm waiting for any possible questions. Amendment 26. The right of citizens of the United States who are 18 years of age or older to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of age. Prior to that, the voting age was 21. That goes all the way back to the Founding Fathers. This is interesting because think about this. Scroll up. I had a question. Pat, I'll take a look in a minute. The founding fathers established that 21-year-old age in order to vote. Back then, if you were 12 as a male, you were essentially a man. The average age of entrance into Yale or Harvard back then was the age of 13. It is interesting that even though young men were so advanced that you were a man by the time you were a teenager, they did not think you had enough whatever up there to vote until you were 21. Even the founders believed that. The Amendment 26 occurred during the Vietnam War. The slogan was old enough to fight, old enough to vote. What was going on is the Democrats knew that they had a problem because they were trying to be the anti-war party to go against Nixon, but their guy, Johnson, had been all about escalating the war. And so this, and also Nixon was a popular president, so they had to figure out a way to get more votes for the Democrats. So with a savvy marketing campaign and some control over Congress, they were able to push through the 26th Amendment. What that did is that brought the voting age from 21 down to 18. And guess who was between 18 and 21? Your college crowd. You know, the ones that are protesting against the war and claiming to be hippies and all that jazz and voting Democrat. Despite doing that, Nixon still won the next election. It was all for naught. Finally, the 27th Amendment. No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. In other words, while they can vote themselves raises, that raise does not take effect until the next Congress. In other words, after the next election. January after the next election, when the new Congress convenes. They can vote their own raises, but it doesn't affect them immediately. It has to be the next Congress. Got to win a re-election if you can get your raise. This was an attempt to mediate corruption, to lessen the corruption. The 27th Amendment was actually one of the original Bill of Rights. 12 amendments were sent out to the states for ratification back in 1789, and in 1791, Bill of Rights was completely ratified, and only 10 of them got ratified. 2 of them did not. This was one of the 2 that did not. It was a part of the original Bill of Rights going all the way back to 1789 in the sense of being proposed. This was ratified May 7th, 1992, when Michigan became the 3/4 vote to finally push it through. There is one more. I hope it never ratifies. It would require 1 member of the House of Representatives for every 30,000 people. That would make the Congress, the House of Representatives anyway, thousands of personnel strong. Now, Pat said, okay, but Obama was illegal, so wouldn't all he did be null and void? No. Once again, getting back to the problem is all that stuff still went into play. It was still done. You still got to go through the process to get rid of it. It doesn't just suddenly make it as if it didn't exist. That's not how the legal system or law or government works. Whether he was supposed to be in office or not, and he wasn't eligible, the fact is those things still went into place, and they would have to be reversed. The executive orders would have to be reversed with another executive order, and the laws would have to be repealed. You still have to go through that process. All right, that all said, it is 4:01. I've got to get to San Juan Capistrano, which is over an hour drive from here. I try to get out there between 5:15 and 5:30, so I better my time, so I better get going. It's been a pleasure being here, and we're done with the Constitution. We will next week. It's looking like we're not going to have a program because I'm going to be out of town, but we'll return in 2 weeks for an episode. And what we'll do is we'll start fielding general questions. We'll field general questions for a few weeks, and then we'll start over. So, that all said, united we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, my friends. God bless you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye now.